Hi friends, I'm Amy and this is A Star Reads, and it's time to finally, now in 2024, play the game of Bookish Life. I know I'm a couple months off. However, I've had to make some changes this year, and they're good changes. I'm very excited about it, especially for me. But that means that my gameplay is going to change. And so I can't wait to tell you all the changes that are coming about. And the actual play of my game, like how I'm playing with my prompts and the genres, is not going to change too much on its own. So I will let you know about that. I didn't change out any of the squares, although I've already seen that maybe one or two of them are just like, maybe I should have changed that one out. But it's all right. For now, the board itself is staying exactly as it was before. The way I'm going to play it is going to change. If you're new to my channel and you've never seen the way my game is played, I'm going to link the playlist up here so you can see what I've done with this board game, how it's changed over the years. If you want to catch up, if you want to see all the fun that I've had with my game, I highly recommend checking out my playlist. I chose to alter the game of life because this is the game that I played growing up, my favorite game. There were a lot of booktubers that were doing TBRs when I first started this and that I was inspired by. And since then, the TBR craze has taken off. There's definitely a few other booktubers that have used the game of life for their game, and I will link some of them down below that I have found. I haven't really updated that list in a while, so if you use the game of life for your TBR, let me know and I will add your information down below. So first I want to go over actual gameplay because people who are new here may not have seen the game and understand how it's played. I start at the beginning, which either I can go to college or I can start a career. And I spin the spinner wheel, and if I get 1 through 5, I go to college first. And if I get 6 through 10, I start a career. And because with starting a career, I get my job right away at the beginning, I will pick a career card, and that's an added book that I have to read right away. As I'm moving along the board, anytime I stop at the stop sign, I have to pause and do whatever the stop sign is asking me to do. Now, in the past, I had different rules for the stop sign, but this year, the stop sign is just a pause of what I'm doing. So like if I roll a 10 and the stop sign is 5 spots away, I have to stop at the stop sign, do that prompt before I move forward. And then the next roll, I can move forward from that stop sign. So I'm not going to be stuck at any stop signs this year. I'm just going to move forward after having to stop at the stop sign at least once. So for each of my spots, last year I had different colors that outlined the prompts. It determined whether or not I had to combine that with the actual genre. However, I'm not doing that this year. I'm doing something different. So the colors around the outside of the boxes really don't have any meaning at this point, at least not this time around. Whenever I spin the spinner wheel, I have to move forward, obviously, the number of spaces that the spinner wheel lands on. But you will also notice that the spinner wheel has a rainbow, maybe. It has a rainbow on it, and these colors correspond with this little thing right here, which is on one side types of genres or types of books. It's not necessarily strictly genres. There are like YA or middle grade, which aren't a genre type. So I've got my different genres on the right hand side, and on the left hand side I have different diversity categories. And this is because when I hit these spinner wheels, these right here, you'll see one has G and one has D. And if I land on one of these, I have to pick a book based on the diversity. If I land on G, it's based on the genre. And anytime my spinner wheel lands on a color, I have to consider the genre as well. Say I land on this spot right here, which is longest book on TBR. I have to pick the book that is the longest book on my TBR based on the genre. So say that I landed on 9, and that's how I got to this particular spot. I would have to have the longest book on my TBR that is also a YA fantasy, because dark green is YA fantasy. So I need to make sure I'm combining the prompt with the genre. And if I can't do that, there are, I don't want to say punishments, but like I said, my game is changing this year, so there are consequences. So if I'm only able to fulfill the prompt, I have to add 1 book to that round. So I need to +1. If I can only fulfill the genre, I have to add 2 books to that round. And each round starts with only 1 book. And this becomes more of a reality in this particular round because I am only allowed to pick books that are on my physical TBR. I am desperately running out of space for my books, especially like on my fiction shelf and some of my other shelves. I'm like, no space left. And that means that any books that I choose for my TBR game have to be books I physically own. And so in the case where it's the prompt and the genre, that becomes much more tricky because I am much more limited in the types of books that I can pick off my shelves. So even though I say that I will be starting with 1 book for each episode, up with a lot more. You never know. It could be the case where I have a lot more books, which just means it'll take probably a bit longer for me to get through these TBRs. And I got this inspiration from Bailey from Is Bailey Reading, because Bailey plays her game as she goes. You see her TBR game video coming out after she's read those books. Hey, it's Editing Amy here. And I don't think I made this very clear. I got my inspiration from Bailey because of the way she goes about it and doesn't have like a monthly TBR. But I'm not going to do mine vlog style where I'm actually including myself reading the books during this TBR video. What I'll do is I'll do my TBR, put it out there, and then once I've completed those books, I'll put the next TBR video out. So like I'll do a quick recap. Yes, I finished this one. Yes, I finished this one. Now I can move on to the next one. And it could happen within any point of the month. There may be months where I can get 2 or 3 videos within the month because it's just a month where I don't have other readathons or other plans, and I am only focused on playing my game, and maybe I only get 1 book for each episode, and that way I can get through them quickly. And maybe I won't get back to my TBR game for a couple months. Like, who knows? I think that the important part of this for me was to make sure that I'm actually reading the books that I pick for my board. So I can't move on to the next episode until I have actually finished those books. So as far as the actual spots go, I definitely have a lot of these that are just prompts. You've got longest book on TBR. This one is educational / teach me something. So it's a book that'll teach me something. And that is the prompt. But I also have a few on here that are unique spots. So for one, I've got book card spots, and those are spots where I have these little things called book cards that are the life cards, and I have given them prompts, like this one's oldest on the TBR, or this one is a friend pick. So I've got different prompts on these little book cards, and these book cards, when they can, will have to also work with the genre. When I land on the green spaces, there are 2 possibilities for these, and I will have to flip a coin to determine which direction I go in. There's one that says M or M choice, which means my choice or Magda's choice, my friend Magda, who I've played this game for in the past. And when I flip the coin, if it's heads, it'll be whatever book I want to read. If I flip the coin and it's tails, it'll be whatever book Magda wants to read. I also have koi or challenge, so I have 2 different cups, koi cup and a challenge cup. Challenge cup has those books that I think are going to be a little more tricky or take me a little more time. Koi cups tend to be easier books or books I'm most excited about. And then the final green spot is what are they reading? And I have this little pot which has a whole bunch of different BookTubers channels, different names in here. And I haven't updated in a while, so there's maybe BookTubers that aren't participating that much anymore, or BookTubers that are new to me that I haven't put in here, so I'll probably have to go through and clean this out and change that up a little bit. But there are still a ton in here and still a lot of active BookTubers. And so if it's heads, I pick one of these BookTubers' favorite books. If it's tails, I pick one of the books that they hated. So that's a very interesting little twist that I did on that particular prompt. And then I guess the only other unique spots are these little spinner wheels. And spinner wheels are basically a lot more simplistic because all I have to do is spin the wheel and either I go with the genre or the diversity rep that comes up. There's no prompt that's associated with them. So the nice thing about those is those give me a bit of a break. In the case of diversity rep, if I am unable to fulfill the diversity rep based off what I actually own on my physical shelves, then I will add a consequence of 1 extra book. So I think that pretty much covers the board. There are some blue spots on here, which usually mean buy a new book, do a giveaway, different things like that. And of course, when it comes to that, those are special spots, and I will fulfill those prompts as they tell me to. There are also some spots on here that actually tell me to add 1 book. So like, where is it? This one right here, it says +1. And so there may be spots on here where I have to add extra books anyways. So ultimately, I think that's it. And I think it'll become a lot more clear on gameplay as I'm moving forward with my games within this year. You'll see what I'm talking about when it comes to my rules. If you have any questions about my game or the gameplay, let me know in the comment section down below, or go ahead and watch one of my previous board explanation videos because I often go over them in more detail there. And I also will include a Google Doc down below that shows you what the prompts are and like what's on my career card. Oh, career cards, I forgot to mention that. When I pull a career card, these are the different careers that come with the Game of Life. And I basically use this as a prompt. So like if I were to get travel agent, I would have to use this card to determine what book I'm going to choose. So what could I pick? I could pick a book about travel. I could pick a book set in a tropical place, because look at that picture. I could pick a book that has a blue cover if I can't think of anything else. So somehow this card would dictate what book that I choose. But without further ado, let's see what's going to happen in episode 1 of the Game of Bookish Life. Will I be able to just read one book for this one, or will I be adding more? Okay, so first things first, we're going to see if I'm going to start with college or go for a career. And if I go for a career, I automatically add an extra book, which is the career card book. So if I spin a 1 through 5, I'm going to start in college. If I spin a 6 through 10, I will be starting with a career. 4, I'm going to college. And what will hopefully be my one and only spin for this particular round. Let's see what's going to happen with my first spin. 9. I'm going pretty far. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. School Days reread, and the genre for this is, as you can see, it's dark green, which is YA fantasy. So YA fantasy that I read during my school days. All right, prompt number 1 was School Days reread, and it needed to be a YA fantasy. This was a tricky one. I was like, do I remember reading YA fantasy when I was in my school days? And I'm not counting my recent college days. I'm gonna try and follow the intention of this prompt was to think about books that I read a long time ago that I really enjoyed or that were inspirational, or things that I want to read again that I'm really excited to get back into. Kind of like I've been rereading the Anita Blake series because it was one that I loved and read a lot when I was like at the end of high school and then through my early 20s. So I really was looking at my physical TBR, things that I own and that I've read before that I want to reread. And to be honest, there were no YA fantasies on there. Nothing that I could think about. So I'm already gonna be taking a consequence with this first spin. And I am gonna go with the prompt that only gives me one consequence, meaning I have to add one more book this episode. Maybe more, but at least for this point, I only have to add one. And I'm gonna be going with a book that I do remember reading when I was really young, and I remember loving it. And I'm very excited to be adding The Joy Luck Club by Amy Tan on this TBR, because I do remember absolutely loving this, but it was so long ago that I just have faint memories of this book. And so I'm wanting to get back into it. Is this on my scratch board? Let me look and see if it's on my scratch board.
I feel like this is the kind of book you would put on a scratch board, but it probably isn't. No, it's not. Unless I already scratched it off. Did I already scratch it off? Nope, it's not on here, which I think is kind of a bummer because I feel like this is the type of book that you would typically put on a scratch board, but oh well, that's okay.
It's a generational story about these women immigrants who came from China in 1949 when this book starts. These women are coming together to have dim sum, play mahjong, recollect on life, talk with each other, be support for each other, and we're getting to hear their immigrant stories, the things that they went through. But then we're also getting to hear about their daughters who were born in America, who obviously have a different life than they had themselves. And often these mothers and daughters don't understand each other, and they need to understand more of each other's struggle or each other's situations in order to, I guess, have a bit more grace for each other. And I just loved that dynamic. I loved hearing the story of these mothers who have very specific ideas and feelings about how life should be lived because of their own experiences. But then these younger daughters who, because they've had this experience of having much more opportunity with their new lives, with the lives that their mothers provided for them and coming to America, I think that that is a very interesting dynamic, and I loved getting to know these characters. I just thought it was so beautifully written. It made me cry, if I remember correctly. I'm sure that it will make me cry again. These kind of books tend to make me cry, and I'm looking forward to getting back into this and rereading it and seeing if I love it as much on a reread. All right, we're already adding a second spin, so this could be a problem. Let's see what's gonna happen with our second spin. 10. Okay, it looks like I am getting a career card. So let's see what career I've got. The career card is also gonna have to work with the genre, which is YA other. So it's a YA book, anything other than fantasy. So let's first shuffle these.
Let's see what career I'm going to get.
An artist. Okay. Artist, YA other. Anything other than fantasy that has something to do with this card or being an artist. Okay, so the second prompt is my career card, and the card is the artist. And with the artist, I also needed to combine this with YA other, which is tricky. I do have other types of YA books on my shelves, for sure. But where artist or being an artist or doing art specifically comes into play, and I realize that there are different forms of art, like that was a little tricky for me. And I don't know, I felt like it was a little limiting. And here's the other thing. I am going to try as much as I possibly can with these particular TBRs to make books work that I already need to read or that I am planning on reading, so that they are books that I'll get to and I won't be putting off this TBR for a really long time. I don't want that. I was just getting so tired of that in the last couple of years. So I'm moving forward by trying to create situations where I'm very likely to get to these books. In this instance, I'm gonna take another consequence, which means I'm gonna add a third book onto this TBR. So for the second one, I went with the prompt. The prompt works for me, and that is The Artist. There's one in particular that I want to read. This is my mood read I'm doing right now, which is the Bridgerton series. In the TV series, Benedict is an artist. And I was like, well, in the book series, is he an artist? Is he an artist? I don't know. And everything I was looking up online kept referring back to the TV show. And so I was like, Shell, you've read it before. Do you remember? And it's been a while since she read it, so she had to do some research herself. And I'm gonna go with Shell telling me that it's true. So if Shell's wrong, it's not my fault. It sounds like Book Benedict is also an artist. So I am going to be reading An Offer from a Gentleman by Julia Quinn, and my goal is to read the first 4 books in this series, the Bridgerton series, by the time the next season of Bridgerton comes out, because the 4th book is all about Colin and Penelope, and I'm like, I want to get there. I got to get through it before May 16th, whenever I'm just so excited. I'm just ready. I need it to be May right now. I will be reading this book. And my mom bought me the next couple books in this series for my birthday. So I'm like, it's coming in the mail. I'm gonna pick it up as soon as I possibly can. So it makes sense that I will put it on this TBR and it will get read. The 3rd book in the series is about the 2nd eldest son in the Bridgerton family, Benedict, and his relationship with one of the hired staff, who I think she has a background of some sort where she is higher within society, and yet because of circumstances, she ends up having to take a job within the Bridgerton household. And I guess her and Benedict start a romance, and we'll see how it goes. I'm very interested to find out, and I'm looking forward to reading this book. Okay, well, as you'll have seen, I have to add another book. So this is already turning out to be a longer TBR than I was hoping for, but let's see what's gonna happen on my 3rd spin. Now let's hope that I can make the prompt and the genre match for this one. Okay, 1, 2. Ooh, that'll be interesting. This is a book card. Let's see what the book card is, and if I can figure out how to make that match with, it would be adult fantasy. Here we go. Oops, I dropped one. Sorry, my lighting is weird because it took me so long to pick the last book. Ready? Flip a coin. Ooh, highest, lowest rated TBR. So this would work actually really well because I can set this for adult fantasy. Okay, so I'm gonna flip my coin, and I've got this really cool coin that says smooth sailing on this side, and it's not gonna show you, but it does say smooth sailing, and has rough seas on this side. And that's tails. So heads is smooth sailing, tails is rough seas. If I land on smooth sailing, it'll be the highest rated adult fantasy on my physical TBR shelf. And if it's tails, it'll be the lowest rated adult fantasy on that shelf. Let's see what happens. Okay. Nice spin, Amy. What'd I get? You probably didn't see the spin, but it was a really good spin. What'd I get? Smooth sailing! So for my 3rd spin, I ended up getting a book card, which are always fun because you never know what's gonna come up on these. And I got heads or tails, which means that I have to flip a coin. And this was, if it was heads, I get to read the highest rated book on my TBR. And if it was tails, I get to read the lowest rated book on my TBR. And the genre I landed on was adult fantasy. And of course, this lends itself really well to being one where I can make the prompt work with the genre, because then I can just pick, of all the adult fantasies I have in my physical TBR, which one is the highest rated book, because I ended up, as you saw, getting a heads. So I'm very excited about this one, and I don't want to say I'm twisting this a little bit, it. But when I went on Goodreads and sorted it by the books that I own, I went by the highest average rated book. And the first one you'll see there is Jade Legacy. Well, I can't read Jade Legacy because I haven't read Jade War yet. But for March, I do have to read Jade War for the Bookstar read-alongs because this is our March book, and that works out perfectly. So even though this isn't necessarily the highest rated, I'm going to still go within the series, and I'm going to read the next book in the series because the final book I can't read yet. But I still think this works, and I have to read this anyways. We had a great time talking about Jade City. It was such an interesting book. We had a lot to talk about. There's a lot of family and political dynamics within the stories that's very interesting to talk about, and characters that we just don't know how much we trust some of these characters. And so I had such a good time with Jade City that I am looking forward to Jade War. But I have heard from a few people that they're like, oh, Jade War, oh my gosh. And so I'm like, what is this book gonna do to me? Just so excited. And this series is all about these two main clans that really do rule everything on this little island that they're on that produces jade. And within the world of jade, there are some people who can safely handle jade, and they're given magical powers with their use of it. So if they're wearing jade, then they have these magical abilities. But most people can't handle jade because it's very dangerous, and you have to have a lot of extensive training, years of schooling before you can safely handle jade. And even then, some people succumb to the jade and it takes over their mind completely. It can be very dangerous. And then there are other people who are immune to it, but it's like a small group of people that are immune to it. For the most part, people can't touch jade or handle it in any way, or else it's just really bad for them. That being said, the power of jade is such a huge deal within this community, within the world actually. It's become really popular within the world that there are these clans that manage it, manage jade use, manage jade production, and they, up to the point of Jade City, have been able to coexist quite well. In fact, they had a truce that was based on a shared focus and throughout the years, like there was a truce between these clans. Well, in Jade City, that truce has changed. One of the clan leaders is causing a lot of issues and wanting to further her clan to an extent that is creating many, many problems. And now these two clans are going to be at war. As you can imagine, the second book's called Jade War. So there's a lot of family dynamic in this book and a lot of morally gray character aspects to it. I can't wait. The action scenes in this are phenomenal. Fonda Lee does an amazing job with the action scenes, and this is actually a very readable series. Like, the books are very easy to get into because the writing is very readable. So I'm really excited to see what happens next, and I'm so happy that I could add this onto my TBR. So these two books, along with An Offer from a Gentleman, will be the TBR for episode 1. And I'm curious to see how long it takes me to read these. I'm going to be prioritizing Jade War in the beginning of March because I don't want to get behind. I don't want to get behind. Let me know in the comment section down below, what is a reread from your school days? Like, could be elementary, high school, middle school, college. What is a reread you'd like to do from those days? And bonus points, well, there's no points really, but bonus points if it's a YA fantasy. Let me know some of the YA fantasies that you loved and read when you were young. If you like this video, give it a thumbs up and subscribe so you can see what happens when I get to episode 2, when I finish these books and can move forward with the game of Bookish Life. Will it take me longer to get through my board? Or will I be able to get through my board quicker with this new format of how I'm playing my game? I'm not sure. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you later.